tubes that is the internet. It's June of 2012, and the topic that we've chosen for the monthly meeting is LinuxGames. Presenting today are two people who've known to play a game or two most of the time in Linux. Tim Bolz, the president of the Northeast Wisconsin Linux Users Group, and Ross Larson, your humble Linux archivist. Who has played a game before? Excellent. That's everyone. We picked a good topic. Excellent. Yes, games are around us all of the time, sucking away our productivity and allowing us to do sometimes fun things when we should probably be doing others. And as Linux is getting better, we're more and more opportunities for us to system test and test the stability of our machines using LinuxGames has come forth. So,
actually, when I started doing this, it's kind of like I did a link there that talked about it, and it has a lot of information about the history of the Linux gaming, which is kind of cool.
The history of Linux gaming actually does read a little bit like a soap opera sometimes, insofar as, it's people have huge, big ideas, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes there's a little bit of drama. Whenever money gets involved, a little bit of drama usually gets involved.
Because most people will play games.
People do want to play games, but for a relatively significant period of time, I think people needed to be convinced that people wanted to play games in Linux, and that Linux was more than just a server operating system that was for business only or for programming only, and really never for fun.
I tried to get my 17-year-old to come tonight. He wouldn't. He's all Microsoft games because that's all his friends could play. So.
Well, the Steam client is eventually going to come out when it's ready, in true Valve fashion. I mean, and when they say when it's ready, I actually played Portal, the first version of Portal, to its completion in Linux. I installed Steam in Wine, downloaded, installed Team Fortress and Team Fortress 2 and Portal, and I played Portal all the way through in Linux. It is possible. At the time, it was a little bit frustrating, and those frustrations are kind of how many frustrations there are. Depends on how much you want to do it. But a little bit of history. Most of the Linux games that started out were mostly text games, and sometimes the text gets hacked off, apparently. So, yeah, what we're missing there is there's NetHack, NetTrek, XBill, XEvil, XBattle, XConk, and XPilot. There's lots of nets, lots of X's, and a little bit of are we keystoning? Are we positioning? There we go.
Nice.
We like reading. Awesome.
Okay.
John McMonagle, everyone.
He's done that before, I bet.
Yes, he knows his way around a projector. Yeah, so once we get to 94, it starts getting a little bit more interesting. Somebody ports Doom to Linux.
That was kind of defining point, they said, for Linux gaming. They said that when he ported that, it was like, oh wow,
yeah,
maybe port some other games.
And I would say Loki would be the next big step in gaming.
That's the next.
Yeah, Loki Software was a person who specialized in creating Linux installers for existing Windows AAA games. One of the big ones that he did was Quake 3 Arena, and a variety of others. It was
Neverwinter Nights.
He also did Neverwinter Nights. Yeah, the Loki installer for Neverwinter Nights was pretty good. I played Neverwinter Nights in Linux for a while. Yeah, I mean, so when the only other option, or one of the only other options was, playing NetHack in your console, having a game like Neverwinter Nights or Quake 3 Arena come for Linux was a relatively significant experience. And I would say the untold part of the story is graphics card manufacturers, as dedicated graphics started to go about, driver support started to become a bigger issue, where not only did you have to have it run, but you had to have it run fast, because it really doesn't matter your frame rate of playing NetHack, but your frame rate playing Quake 3 Arena or your frame rate playing Neverwinter Nights is a little bit more important. So that's when people started to be a little bit more, I would say, passionate and interested in the status of specifically video card drivers, but also really any drivers in Linux. Sound and video were the big ones.
Which Loki did a
Yeah,
lot.
Loki really helped out. I believe.
Standardized.
Well, I think Loki wrote SDL, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think in order to help the porting process along, I think Loki came up with this. What's it called? The SDL, which is the standard something library. But yeah, basically, he in order to ease his process of porting games over, he more or less created the framework, the original framework of playing Linux games. The act of the act of getting input, keyboard, sound, and video all kind of working together in a way that interacts with games in a low latency, non-crashy fashion. But going on to game genres, we've got a lot of logic games in Linux. Due to the nature of a lot of open source games being relatively popular, logic games. There's a lot of open source logic games. There's some role playing games. I would call Battle for Westnut kind of halfway between strategy and role playing. Battle for Westnut is a very fun game, open source, turn-based strategy game that does have it has an open framework for creation of maps and creation of story-based missions. So in the playing of maps, there are missions that you can go on that add quite a few role-playing elements as well, that allow decision trees and saying, do I choose to save this person, do I choose to do that, and those decisions have consequences later on in the decision paths that people write. And that's through a completely open framework, which is pretty cool. It also is the reason that Battle for Westnut has been ported to a crap load of different systems, including the Mamo operating system of the old Nokia N800s, as well as, I believe, different tablets. I believe there's an Android app, etc., etc., etc. All over the place there is Battle for Westnut. There's adventure, classic arcade, fighting, the game type things. Oh. Do it. Moving it.
Oh,
First-person shooters are a huge one. But before we go too far into the other ones, first-person shooters are a goldmine in Linux, partially due to the influence of id Software. id Software has been very Linux-friendly since its inception, and also instituted a policy of more or less every time that they released a new game, very soon after the game engine that was 2 generations old, they would open source. And I know the biggest one that made news is when they, I think it was when Doom 3 came out. Yeah, I believe it was when Doom 3 came out, they open sourced the Quake 3 engine, so that anyone could use the Quake 3 engine to render anything they want. And because of that, obviously a ton of first-person shooters based on the rendering of the Quake 3 engine sprouted up, such as Tremulous, I believe Warsaw,
which someone with the cartoon character.
World of Padman.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
It is a lot of fun. And a variety of a couple other games that use the Quake 3 engine for a non-first-person shooter genre came about. I believe they made a racing game out of the Quake 3 engine, but Yeah, those were slightly less popular than what the engine was originally designed for. But yeah, MMORPGs, moos, puzzlers, racing games like Tux Racer. I both love and hate Tux Racer because it was
It's
included
such
on
a-
every. Yeah, it was included in every distribution for a while for no particular reason other than it was the only 3D game that was easy to get a hold of. And so often Tux Racer was your way of finding out that your 3D card drivers sucked. Or at least that's what I found out when I owned an ATI card. And I hear that ATI's drivers aren't as bad as they used to be because I only used to be able to do 2D and nothing else. But yes, ATI and NVIDIA have both had numerous detractors and champions, mostly detractors, people grumbling about the quality of their support. There's also the argument of open versus closed as far as the drivers. Video card drivers tend to be released from the video card manufacturers as closed source binaries, but there are open source projects that work as well in order to try to make open source versions that are the goal is to be as good as the proprietary version. The reality is that they're never as good, but sometimes they are good enough for you to do the things that you need to do, such as the NV, which is the open source NVIDIA driver. I believe Gallium is another one. There's a bunch of them. If you're wondering about Linux performance, the best place to go to is a place called Phoronix.com. Phoronix. Phoronix? Yeah, Phoronix. They have been obsessed with Linux benchmarking for years. And also Linux rumor mongering. They're usually the people that are talking about, we heard that Valve is doing the Steam Linux client. They've been saying that for like 5 years now, at least. And in their defense, Valve has been messing around with their Steam Linux client for about 5 years and refuses to release it until it's actually playable and usable for the normal person. But yes, they like to rumor monger, but they love their benchmarking. And one of the things that they have is a Phoronix test suite that allows you to test how performant your machine can be for games and, of course, for the other stuff as well, I guess. So, we got adventure, we got fighting, we've got... Did I go in the wrong direction? Alright, so... we've got serious games, we've got simulations, RTS, RPGs, all sorts of awesome stuff. The one thing that we don't have on here, first, sports games, third-person shooters.
There's not many sports games that I know of, do you?
There's not a ton, just because the development cycle of a sports game tends to be the yearly roster update plus a couple incremental improvements. And creating an open source game where people can upload the rosters doesn't really have a good revenue model associated with it, and therefore game studios have basically more or less ignored the entire sports genre because of that. Because I would say game manufacturers don't see the point in putting those resources towards a Linux install when they can make boatloads of money developing for consoles. But I would say web-based games are definitely getting bigger. Angry Birds being one of them. The emergence of WebGL and the ability to play 3D and other Flash type games in the browser has allowed you to be really operating system agnostic. So it doesn't care that you're running Linux, even though that you do. Like, for example, I know Chrome, you can play Bastion directly in the Chrome browser if you want. There is also now a native Linux installer, but, I mean, it just works in the browser if you wanted to install it as a web app. Angry Birds is another one of those. The thing that we didn't bring up in game genres is emulators. There are a wide variety of emulators for game systems gone by. For example, Stella for Atari. You've got Z-SNES or SNES 9X for Super Nintendo. MAME is the multiple arcade machine emulator for arcade games. You've got Gens, D-Gen, and K-Gen for Genesis, Sega CD, and I believe 32X. Believe there are now PlayStation emulators, although I have not messed with those at all. Theoretically, believe Mupen 64 sounds familiar, and I believe that's a Nintendo 64 emulator. And I think I don't know for sure whether or not there's a Linux version of a Dreamcast emulator. But that's quite
Commodore
possible.
64.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you do want to go older, that tends to be I believe there's probably a Vectrex
CRC.
emulator. There's Commodore 64 emulator. I believe there's an Amiga way to do it. There's DOSBox is a way of implementing. Theoretically, DOSBox allows you to do anything you want in DOS, but most people implement DOSBox for DOS-based games, such as the old school King's Quest, what is it called? Street Rod. I loved Street Rod and Street Rod 2.
And Larry,
Jackrabbit.
Leisure Suit Larry. Yeah, so these are games you can play in Linux if you want. Let's see, what else? Totally lost where I was going.
Emulators.
Yeah, emulators. What's it called? The LucasArts game. ScumVM is another incredibly portable open source emulator which allows you to play the point and click games such as Beneath the Steel Sky, Full Throttle, Secret of Monkey Island, and all of the point and clicky type games that were often made by LucasArts. Like Sam & Max Hit the Road, and the Sam & Max series is another one.
Star Wars.
There very well may have been a Star Wars game in there. But yeah, this is LucasArts Studio, the game company that came about. It was we make Star Wars games, and oh, by the way, look at all of our point-and-click games too. But yeah, there were a lot of fun. Some of those games have been open sourced. I believe Beneath a Steel Sky, I believe, is open source and is available, I think, directly from repositories. I think you can get it from Ubuntu if you look hard enough.
I think Zork is even.
There's the Infocom emulator, which the Infocom emulator emulates text-based Infocom style games, such as the Zorks up to when Zork decided not to be text-based anymore. Another thing that you can do is you can play the old school Zork and be in the dark about to be eaten by a grue, or have your sword shine very brightly, etc., etc., etc. So, with that long explanation, there are a lot of games available. And why are games important to Linux? Well, it is something that we like to do in our spare time. It is fun, but it also, I would say, increases people's involvement, and it increases people's emotional investment in the operating system. For many years, people say, if only Linux could play the games that I want to play, I would switch in an instant. And depending on the games that you want to play, that might already be true, because there are a ton of games that you can play. I will say, as a caveat, it's not 100%. And if you're expecting 100% of games that were written in other programming languages for other proprietary operating systems without any efforts to port, some of that stuff isn't going to happen, because some companies don't really like sharing proprietary information, and it's really difficult to guess. Insofar as there's not enough time to keep up with development schedules by guessing the information that's on the other side. Compatibility will never get to that point. But there's a lot of things that you can do, and there's a lot of companies that do try to get in that. Let's talk about websites for Linux games, although they're almost impossible to read, so I'll just tell them to you. penguspy.com, linuxgames.com, happypenguin.org, LGDB, which I believe is the Linux Games Database,
Yes.
and humblebundle.com, which I will be spending most of my time on. I believe Wolfire Games, Jeffrey Rosen is the guy who did Wolfire Games. A couple years ago now, came out with a bundle and said, Okay, here's the deal. Indie gamers like making games. I hear you guys like playing games. But you haven't bought these games, and they're pretty good. So maybe you should give them a try. And in order to encourage you to give them a try, you can pay anything you want, from 1 penny up to $1,000 if you feel like it. So that's what we're going to do. Pay what you think that they are worth, and you can download them, and they are DRM free, and they are cross-platform. You can run them in Linux, you can run them in Mac, and you can run them in Linux. Or yeah, I think that was all three. Whatever.
And Windows.
And Windows, yeah, them too. So they came out with the Humble Bundle, and I believe the first bundle sold like $1.5 million, and surprisingly, the average purchase price, they actually tracked average purchase price per operating system, and the consistently through every Humble Bundle so far, the highest average purchase price has always been Linux. In fact, usually the average purchase price that Linux gamers have been willing to pay is typically twice of what the Windows gamer will pay, and then usually Mac is somewhere in between. But there are people out there, and they are willing to pay money for games. And
Why do you think that's so? Because
why do you think that's so? Because,
Play game.
well,
well, I think it's because people want games ported to Linux, so you get more developers to say, hey, if more these Linux guys are willing to pay twice as much, maybe we'll.
which actually does bring up somewhat of the
Developer.
seedy underbelly of Linux games. You notice Loki isn't still in existence because Loki went out of business. Loki didn't make enough money to pay for his own salary porting games. The process of making games for Linux and selling them was not profitable enough for him to keep doing it. And so when things like Humble Bundle come along, people have attempted to try to vote with their wallets as much as possible to indicate, yes, there is actually value in bringing your games to Linux. And because of that, there have been, something like 10 Humble Bundles so far. Humble Bundle 5 just completed 2 hours ago, give or take. And the Humble Bundle 5, which included Bastion, Psychonauts, Limbo, Sword and Sorcery, and a couple other games, as well as they also, if you beat the regular purchase price, they also allowed for soundtracks. Bastion was one of those games that was pay more than the average price and get it. And I think the average price ended up being around $8.50. So if you paid $10, you could get 7 games, something like that. I've got it on here someplace, but they sold something like 800,000 bundles in the most recent Humble Bundle, which was over a period of 15 days. They raised $5 million. And the added bonus of that is that they've always allowed you to, on a slider, indicate this is the money I'm giving, and slide it between, I believe, 3 different things. Typically, it's the developers of the indie games themselves, the runners of the Humble Bundle promotions, and a charity, or more, sometimes more than one. Typically, I believe the most recent charity that was listed was Child's Play, and Child's Play is a charity that works to put game systems and games in the hands of people with chronic or terminal illnesses in children's hospitals, which I think actually would be a really cool thing to participate in. For example, the closest Child's Play hospital is actually in Milwaukee, despite the fact that there's a children's hospital in Neenah. And so, for example, if you have a child and they have serious issues, they go to Neenah, and Child's Play isn't there. Theoretically, if they get worse, they go to Milwaukee, and hooray, they get to play video games then. But wouldn't it be nicer to allow them to play games without having for them to get much sicker.
Which hospital is that?
Children's Hospital in Neenah is at Theta Care, I think.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but yeah, that's where the NICU of this area. But I don't think they let the NICU kids play video games, as they don't really have the hand-eye coordination or really vision, to speak of, etc. But the Children's Hospital definitely, and I think that particular charity is definitely worth supporting. They have in the past also had the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I believe there was some sort of Save the Polar Bears thing at one time. One of the bundles they did was the Humble Mojam bundle, which Mojam, the creators of Minecraft, agreed to during the 2 weeks that the bundle was going on. They would create a game, and it would be determined the style and genre and theme would be determined by popular vote of people who have purchased the bundle. So I believe the game that they made was a real-time strategy Egyptian steampunk game. Because and so that's because apparently that's what people wanted to play. So they made it in a week, and then they more or less released the source to anybody who wants to use it, and that's available Mac Win Linux. So yeah, a variety of bundles have been happening. Keep watching because they'll keep coming out. A good number of the games that I play now have been purchased through Humble Bundles. So I'm happy to say that I pay for the Linux games that I play. Which is kind of nice to be able to say, because a lot of people were saying, I run Linux, I want to play games, please just take my money. And Humble Bundles was one of the easiest ways for that to occur. It continues to get easier. The Ubuntu Software Center actually will take all of the games from the Humble Bundle 5 are in the Ubuntu Software Center, that you can pay for them individually, but if you buy them through the Humble Bundle, there's actually just a code that you can provide to the Software Center, and it will simply install them via into Ubuntu for you without you having to install or to download the deb packages yourself. But I mean, if downloading a deb package and double clicking it and putting in my password is the worst thing that I need to do in order to install a Linux game now, I will be ecstatic about that, because it used to not be as easy. So I'm definitely happy with games being more abundant, more fun, and easier to install and play.
And some of those sites, depending on style, you can exit that and go to some of those sites.
Oh, yeah, let's go to the sites. All right.
I have a question that.
Yep, questions
I've
while we go to the
never
sites.
played in any of the kind of games that you're talking about. I played, the typical Minesweeper card game or whatever. But
Well, puzzle games are actually pretty popular.
I do Sudoku in the newspaper, but what would you use for a game controller? You just use the
You can
up-down
use
arrow keys,
a lot
or-
of. You can use the keyboard, but many USB controllers nowadays will present themselves as what's called HID, human interface devices, and simply work. So a
I mean,
lot of
just like-
times,
just like the same those kind like my kids use on his PS2 and stuff. Is that what you're talking
I
about?
believe you can use a
I have no idea
PS.
what you use.
I believe you can use a PS3 controller directly, as well as Wiimotes. There are ways to use them if you have those consoles.
Use
Bluetooth. If it uses Bluetooth, then you can just use it. I know I use a Logitech, dual analog, one digital, 4 shoulder buttons, 4 regular buttons, and then a couple more. Looks a lot like a PlayStation
Just
2
the old
controller.
up, forward,
Yeah.
left, back, left,
Yeah.
right, fire.
But the ones that I have looks a lot like a PlayStation 2 controller, only it's made by Logitech and it's USB. I've got 3 or 4 of those. Funnily enough, one of the best controllers that was made to be friendly with Linux was the Microsoft Sidewinder controllers. Back in the day, the old GamePort Microsoft Sidewinders that you could daisy chain together. I had like 4 or 5 of those because they worked just fine, and they were actually high quality. You know, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of Microsoft's software at the time, but they could make a decent peripheral, and I was willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to. I usually bought them used, so I don't think they got any money from me. But yeah. So, the ones that I use now are Logitech because they have both the digital D-pad as well as analog input, and I mean many of the games in the Humble Indie bundle are actually played best with video game controllers or controllers, such as Bastion is probably more fun to play with a controller. I know Shank was in one of the previous bundles, better with a controller. But yeah, there's a bunch of games to play. Yeah. Do you want me to boot up one of the games? Because I've got a couple on my system.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Move over to Ross's.
Yeah. Well, while we're moving over, any questions?
So if you pay for this Humble Bundle, I mean, you did have to pay, I mean, we've missed the window now for Humble Bundle 5?
Unfortunately, yeah, the bundle is a very limited time thing. Like the Humble Bundle is going on for about 2 weeks, and usually they go on for about 2 weeks.
So we missed the window.
Sadly, yes.
Okay.
That's why I posted on the.
Yeah, that's why we tried to send emails. We're like, buy in the bundle, buy in the bundle.
And I went like, oh, I looked at them and I went like, oh.
And
I said, well,
sadly, one of the realities of making games available in DRM-free formats is that piracy is a reality of the Humble Bundles. One of the detractors of the Humble Bundle series is because they have categorically refused to put DRM on the games that they're selling, a certain amount of people will choose to pirate them even instead of paying 1 cent for the game. They did eventually put in the restriction that you have to pay at least $1 to get a legitimate Steam key for the game if you wanted to play it in Windows. But since the installer, since theoretically I could give you the links to my purchase page and you could download the games and put them on your computer, I won't do that just because I don't feel right about it. But yes, that unfortunately piracy is a part of the Humble Bundle, and theoretically, if you are so inclined, the games likely can be found. I haven't tried because I've purchased I haven't bought every single one of the bundles, but really close. Because when you're paying that little to get that many games that all work in Linux, usually it's worth $5 to get 7 games, or plus soundtracks to most of them, because usually they allow they offer downloadable soundtracks of the games as well as the 3 versions of the installer. So
When you buy the bundle, you have to specify Linux or Windows, or you could get, like if I buy the bundle and I take some Linux games, can my kid take some of the Windows games?
yes, you can use the Steam key, and you can put it and you can install it in Windows if you want, and you can also go to Linux and install the deb. If you have a Mac, a PC, and a Linux in a Linux box, you could install the game that you've purchased on all 3.
Okay.
They don't have any qualms of, hey, wait, when you bundled, you only bought 1, so you need to bundle 3 times in order to. No, they don't mess with that. It's DRM free. Once you get, I'll link, you get all of those. Let's see. Let's figure out. Let's try to get the function. Yes. Okay. So we are talking games. So let's play some games. Let's do Voxatron. So Voxatron is a voxel-based game. Voxels are little squares that Voxels are little squares that allow you to interact with the world in a more realistic fashion. And by realistic, I mean everything is made of big squares. But everything is destructible because it's all made out of little squares. And so literally, if you throw a grenade at things... Hello! Yep, so theoretically, if you play, which I would like to do, I will do one of the arcade versions. Okay, so I'm running around, let's see, Alt, Control, Shift.
Ooh, a show!
Yeah. I can't remember how, oh, Z? Is it Z? X? X! X is, yes, X is how you shoot. I remember that now. So you go around, you jump, you try not to die. Sometimes you get power-ups, and yeah, that was a hand grenade. So yeah, and as you see, because it's a voxel-based game, for example,
Dad, you get a chair.
if I go towards this and I shoot, oh no, that's bad. Okay, so now as you see, as I'm shooting the wall, each bullet is making portions of the wall come apart, and that bull thing just totally blew apart the little pedestal that I typically use to hide from people. Oh, now I have the blaster. So now I have a bigger gun type thing. Oh, I get to freeze people, but nobody's on the map, so it doesn't really matter. Triple shot. Sweet. Oh, those things can fight at me. So yes, Voxatron. Voxatron actually I believe it headlined its own Humble bundle at one time. It was the Humble Voxatron bundle, where they said, we're making this cool new game, and we want to make it available to you. It uses voxels, and it is cool. It is called Voxatron. Oh, stupid. I hate those things. Oh, there we go. And whoops. Come on. Yeah. Theoretically, there are a couple game modes for this. You can either have it always. Oh goodness gracious!
Why did you get that?
That must not be good.
You can have it always fire in the direction that you're facing, or you can. There's a more I would say involved mode. Oh goodness gracious! Yeah. So when you die, that happens, which is both cool and uncool because it means you died. But in the arcade version, you just have to press fire to respawn and to start over. So now we can go over it again.
So
And right now, I'm just going to taunt them. Ha! You've got nothing on me. Ha ha ha! Choo choo choo! Okay, yeah, but that's Voxatron. It's delightfully retro, despite the fact that it was a very recently made game. I get a kick out of retro games that were made recently, but are based on the gameplay and genre-based awesomeness that all of the older games taught us. I don't remember what else is installed on here. Results.
Are these all the games that you can
feet.
play online?
Likely, yes. Trine and Trine 2 were a part of one of the Humble bundles. So yes. Let's go with Darwinia. Darwinia is by a software company called Introversion, which is a relatively small indie-ish based studio based in the UK. They've made a variety of interesting games like Uplink, Darwinia, Multiwinia, Defcon, and I believe they're coming out with a new one sometime soon.
What's the one where you're a hacker?
That's Uplink.
Oh, Upload, yeah, that's okay.
Oh, please, game.
It's where you're a hacker and you gain points and you can get hired on as a hacker and it's like...
Does my graphics not work? This is what you get for installing a new operating system right before doing a presentation. Yeah, I'm not getting video at all. That's awesome. No, it's not the cable's fault. It's me. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. That's my virtual
Maybe if
terminal.
we
That's my actual
unplug it.
terminal. No, because we're getting sound, so it's working. It's just not working with the sound. So as you can see, just even if it is as easy as just upload or just downloading a dev file, sometimes it doesn't just work, which is sad but true. So
Unplug it and plug it back in again.
well, yeah, I mean it's not working on the regular laptop screen, so
Oh, okay.
unplugging it and replugging in the projector is not going to be as useful. So yes, restart. That's not the best way. Oh, come on. Oh, I have to log in. No, it's not.
I had a problem with logging in like that. It said,
Oh, you got it. Okay, so this is shutting down. In the meantime, let's put yours back in. But yes, there are more games, and they are fun, and most of them have actual picture. There we go. So here's Penguin Spy with more information about particular types of games. And Yet It Moves was another humble indie bundle game. Cran Physics Deluxe. That was a humble indie bundle game. Cogs, puzzle game. Lots of fun. Humble indie bundle game. Space Cam. Say that again?
Flying ones? Like
Flying.
flight jets?
yeah, they do have flight simulator.
You mean like a shoot 'em up or like a flight simulator?
Either one.
They-
Flight
they-
sim or flight
They actually
simulator?
had a couple that were
I got 16.
under, or
Yeah, there is actually a super involved flight sim that's incredibly faithful to the actual flight process. I cannot remember the name of the,
I'm sure it could be Google.
Yeah. but I know people put together absolutely insane setups in order to just play that game in Linux.
Yeah.
If you ever want to see one, I'll take you guys on a tour.
What?
An incredibly ridiculous flight simulator
Yes,
with a
I-
half dozen video projectors, and
I am
it's fully.
yes, count me in for that.
here's the flight simulator.
Yep, X3
Vegas
came out.
Vegas Strike and X3 is the or it's the
Yeah.
space-based game. With,
Flight Gear?
Yeah,
Flight Gear might
Flight
be the
Gear
one
is
that
one
I'm
of
talking
them,
about. Yeah, so Flight Gear is
Looks like a V1 or V17.
it very well may be. I know they work very hard to be faithful to the vehicles
Yeah.
that they portray, and there are lots of them.
Oh, that's like an F-14.
The F-14 couldn't change the wings. Was that the F-16?
No, you're right. It's the newer one. It's the Joint Force.
Yeah.
The X-Wing.
F-111 is one.
Yeah, if you want faithful recreation of planes in the sky, this is your game, buddy.
I like
Yeah. So let's aim for the aircraft carrier. I hope he doesn't crash, because that would be awkward. Slow down, man. Honestly. That's him swearing because he's going too fast. Holy beep! What the bleep? Can't we stop the bleep?
It's exactly like Top Gun for 8-bit Nintendo.
Yeah. Or was it Afterburner? Old school.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I bet you it's pretty. Yeah, and now and they have many planes. So if you have a particular plane that you like, it's very possible that it's in there. One thing that would be interesting, I don't know if that they have, but I think it'd be really cool to fly a Mosquito. The Mosquito was the plane in the UK in World War II that they made out of wood in a furniture factory.
Oh.
And it was so freaking light because it was
But
just
it
an
was really
engine
fast,
and
yeah.
basically furniture. And so none of the at the time, none of the other planes could keep up with it, which was good because if any planes could, they would, you know, smash it to smithereens because it was only made of wood. But yeah, the Mosquito.
Well, you never will wear safety.
Right. There's a certain inherent amount of risk in being there.
Cal going on or anything, pretty much it.
Yeah. So, yes, there are planes. The end of planes.
But
How do I be done with planes?
I would just probably put them in a shooter or something. Get it goes into the platform music. Or,
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so any other games that we're interested in? Strategy, first-person shooters, Zoonotic we forgot to mention. Racing games, lot of platform, a lot of puzzle. Cogs is really cool. I could show you that real quick because apparently they've got YouTube links to everything. But Cogs is a 3D. It's a 3D puzzler, and I find it incredibly relaxing and fun to play because it's got a real kind of a interesting kind of chimes-esque soundtrack. And so what you do in this one is you try to move the gears to the point where you can get the top right gear running, which they're pretty good at it because they made the game. You may not go that fast, just to warn you. But so there's a variety of different puzzles for you to do. This one is you have to get the bell at the top to ring, and one of the cogs, and only one, has a ringer on it. So you have to make sure that one is the one that's up there, and then you go, and it goes ding, in order to, yeah. So again, you may not be this fast when you're doing it, and don't feel bad about that, because they're going at ridiculous speed.
Plus, they know exactly what you need.
Yes, they do. I think they're doing the Jack in the Box one. Oh no, this is the one with steam. So what you need to do is you need to get the steam through the pipes properly into the place where the steam needs to go. And I think it needs to go in 2 different places. So they're going to go at a ridiculous rate of speed and allow that to happen. Later on, they give you colored steam, which they want a particular balloon made with a particular type of steam. Oh, goodness gracious. There we go. Look at them go. There we go. So now the steam is powering the thing, and it is going, but it is not going because the cogs are not there.
Driving the wheels?
See what?
They have to drive the wheels? Steam?
Yeah, the steam is what's powering the cogs. So yeah.
But the cogs have to also turn the wheels, is that why it's not going anywhere?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
And now, there we go.
Yeah, okay.
So now all the cogs are going, but the cogs aren't turning the wheels yet because the cogs aren't there. There's one wheel, so it's now going in circles. And now they're going to do the other wheel. That's not right. It's almost there. Yeah, there we go. Now the thing's moving. Everybody's happy. So anyways, yeah, little puzzle game, really fun. Any other type of games that people are interested in?
do you have to pay for that, or is it free?
Cogs, I think you have to pay for. I know I bought it as a part of the Humble Indie Bundle.
And how often is the Humble Indie Bundle?
A couple times a year, 3-4 times a year, or maybe
And
3.
can you purchase previous Humble?
Sadly, no. Although you will notice from time to time that previous bundle favorites will be re-released as bonuses in future bundles. So, for example, in the current one, I think they released 1 or 2 games that had been in bundles before. But yes, a lot of these games, pretty sweet. So let's go for first-person shooters. This is Zoonotic. Pretty sweet. Again, you have nearly an embarrassment of riches of first-person shooters in the ratings. People kind of like it. But really, because so many first-person shooters have been made and so many people like playing them, There's definitely been.
How did you do that?
Hmm?
How did you?
The little button in the corner,
Oh,
this thing, that's, I don't know if you can see it, but it's right over here and it says full screen. So anyways. And we're buffering, so we'll just, let's get to the shooting. Okay. Or maybe not. Oh, yeah, there we go. Come on, you can do it. We'll pause that. Anybody have a funny joke? No funny jokes?
No, I think the
Anybody
kids
ever played the game?
like Minecraft.
Yes. Are we first person shooter approved, or should we stop doing this? Okay. Making sure that I'm not corrupting your children in a way that you are not okay with.
You kids play Minecraft, right?
There we go. So, enemy territory. Old school online only based game, yeah. The enemy territory, another awesome game. Enemy territory Quake Wars. You could also play in Linux.
Now, is this with the
Lots
Quake
of
Quake 4 engine?
This might be. It doesn't look like the Quake 3 engine. It might be the Doom 3 engine, because I think they recently released that. Hello, Rocket Jump. Yeah, some of these first-person shooters move at a rate that is simply astounding. I look at people play these games and I go, wow, I'm old. I guess I'll play puzzle games now. But yes, I actually do like a first-person shooter from time to time, as long as I know the people that I'm playing with won't wipe the floor with me. All right, awesome.
So I was giving my next question, do they have interactive online games?
Say what?
Interactive online games?
As far as online games and online in the community,
So
like
you can
massive.
game but friend inside New York or something.
Say that again.
You can
Multiplayer
game
game?
buddy in New York or whatever.
Multiplayer.
So games to play multiplayer with people not sitting with you.
Right.
Many Linux games have multiplayer modes. For example, Battle for Westneth has a Westneth server that you can run and connect to, and either play hot seat games from the same computer, or connecting across the world to do that.
Neverwinter Nights, which is
Yeah, Neverwinter Nights had an online mode. I don't know how well the Linux version networked together. But yeah, nearly every first-person shooter is going to have dedicated servers that allow you to go in from anywhere. The closer you are, the closer your pings will be. So I mean, you can, game with your friends in Sweden. They just might have a little bit higher ping, or you might have a higher ping depending on where the server is.
And you have some other ones that are-
Okay, yeah, so, Linux Games Database. So here's lots and lots of Linux games. Also, one thing that we didn't do, OpenTTD. The original game was called Transport Tycoon. Oh, Transport Tycoon Deluxe. And OpenTTD is a clone of that game, and it is a very, very faithful translation of the game, but also incredibly popular and incredibly portable. You name the system, like the Pandora, or GP2X, I think, had a port of Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe. I mean, this OpenTTD has been ported to darn near everything.
And there's public servers all over the place and lots of people on them, and it's really easy to set the game up publicly, and it's a train sim where you can try to race to be the biggest and use up all the resources.
Admittedly, I haven't played much OpenTTD, but it is tons of fun.
Oh, and you waste a lot of time.
Speaking of which, is
Plane ship.
Bomberman. A Bomberman clone that runs in Linux. Hooray! Does anybody want to play Bomberman right now?
Down here.
I really liked playing Bomberman back in the day. It was so much fun. So, anyways, yes, the thing that I was trying to ask was, are we as a users group interested in having a Linux LAN party and playing some of these games, or are we good with just talking about them? Because either way is fine.
I like your idea of hooking up with the community in the hospital, the kids in the hospital.
Yeah, I'm all about that. I think if we could get something resembling a local presence for Child's Play and try to get some stuff in Nina, that'd be totally awesome. Yes,
I'll whip your butt in the game.
you will whip my butt. So that is I'm interested in playing. Yes. So we have one vote for I would like to play.
I'm not
So-
much of a game player.
No,
I
yeah.
always tell people I'd rather write the game than play the game.
Yeah. My problem is I have more games than time in both Windows and Linux. But a lot of the games are really fun, so I'm okay with playing them. I tend to be able to come up with reasons for, or more excuses to play them if I'm playing with other people.
I've written
Yes.
about 3 logic.
So what?
I've written about 3 logic.
Okay.
I think.
Are
I
they
personally
in
think it's
Linux?
more fun to write than this. What?
I was just messing with you. I said, are they in Linux? But yes.
They're anything you want to be.
Yeah.
C.
Oh, fair enough.
And they're text-based. I mean, they're not, high graphics. The other one I wrote is in JavaScript.
That's my speed.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if you want to know about video game development in using open source tools, Iculus, which is I believe the guy who did the Loki stuff. Because I think Iculus did, Ryan Iculus Gordon. I think he was the guy who ran Loki, I think. Or maybe I just have a bad memory and Loki and Iculus were the only 2 people, but they were separate people. Anyways, so. Next one, Linux Gamers Game List. This is Iculus's website. So this is, I believe this is stuff that some of this LGP, Linux Game Publishing, was a website for a while that sold commercial versions of Linux games. Cold War, it was one of theirs. It was first-person strategy. It was kind of like Metal Gear Solid, only set in Cold War Russia, and you were a spy trying to find out information about some coldish, warish, conspiracy-ish thing. But Crimson Fields is a really good turn-based strategy based on World War I or World War II planes.
Descent.
Yeah, Descent, the first Descent, the second Descent. Darwinia.
Oh, yeah.
Introversion.
I think you got me hooked up.
Darwinia's a wonderful game. That's why I wanted to play it.
It was they had a demo. They have a demo on it that you can play. And it's
Yes.
very good.
Yes. I mean, in general, Introversion makes good games. The problem with Introversion, dare I say it, is because they are so small. The amount of games that they come out with is they're not going to bring out 6 games a year. They're bringing out a game every year or so, and we are currently in the or so part of that. Although they did a humble Introversion bundle where they actually sold the entire Introversion catalog in order to help Introversion to continue to exist, so that they could bring out the next game that they're bringing out. And actually, one of those is one of the recent games is DEFCON, which I'm surprised is not on here because that is available for Linux as well. Doom 3, DOSBox, Duke Nukem, Elementary Quake Wars. So many games. We're not even to H yet. There we go. Okay. Yeah. IOQuake is the open source Quake 3 engine.
Icebreaker.
Yeah.
The one game
Breakout?
that I had couldn't find was I think it had an emulator for was QIX, I think it's pronounced Kix.
Kicks. Yeah. You can. I mean, you can get. Yeah. Here's Mumpin 64. That's the Nintendo 64 emulator. But if you know what game console it came out for it, there's a ROM someplace of questionable legality. There. I mean, the
I
person.
guess it was Commodore 64.
Right. So I mean, you likely can find kicks for the Commodore 64 and play it in an emulator in Linux if you want to. Yeah. The question about old games, there's abandonware is kind of an interesting political topic for games in general. Like, you know. If I want to play Streets of Rage 2 right now in Linux, I can't pay. Well, I could ask Sega to make a Linux port of Streets of Rage 2, like the one that came out for the Genesis. They're just not going to do it. But other people have made open source Sega Genesis emulators, and ROMs for Streets of Rage 2 are available. I own a cartridge of it, so I don't feel bad playing the ROM for Streets of Rage 2 because I own the game. It's in a box, so I don't want to, pull out the actual Genesis anymore and do it that way if I can do it at my PC. Or playing a game of Mutant League Hockey. The Electronic Arts for a short period of time made two Mutant League games, Mutant League Football and Mutant League Hockey, of which I own both and continue to enjoy playing, because you don't need to do roster updates when all of your players are mutants like trolls and skeletons. 1992, or maybe 94, because I think Mutant League Hockey came out like maybe 94 or 95. So yes, LinuxGames.com is the next one, and this is a good place to get Linux games information. So, Wolfire Games, who are the principal organizers of the Humble Indie Bundle, have a new game called Overgrowth. And that's something that's going on. Other stuff. Oil Rush Tower Defense. Here's the Humble Indie Bundle that I was talking
When you
about.
suggested it, I started looking at the games and I was like, wow, I didn't even know there were this many.
Simply going under the assumption that games aren't available in Linux, which used to be more or less true, I would say is no longer an accurate factual statement. If you have relatively good hardware, drivers that work on that hardware, and something resembling a mainline distribution, there are binaries, packages, and or ways for you to install your games in portions so large that I would be surprised that you did not have enough time, or that you had free time that you could not fill with games that you wanted to fill with games. Especially if you're okay with emulators, because then you're talking about, I'm bored, yet I could play any Nintendo, Sega, Atari, or Super Nintendo game ever made. Which, I mean, 12-year-old me was okay with only a small percentage of that number of games and played plenty. So, that's the big thing there.
I had a game that would emulate Machine Gun Fire. It would have the floppy disk. It would go and hit this. If it hit a certain sector, it would just make this click noise. So it would just go.
Have you seen the videos of people taking 3.5 floppy drives and making music out of them?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I know they have one that they do. I think it's got to be at least a trio of floppy drives playing Vader's Imperial March. Okay, the gauntlet has been put down. I must now find it.
Oh, okay. The first link is.
So okay. So let's see. Vader. Oops. Oh goodness gracious, keyboard. Boom.
Well.
Give me video geekology. So it's apparently just a duet.
They got them like with 15 floppy drives or something
Oh yeah,
too.
they are not messing around with that stuff. Apparently it's Polish.
Arduino board or something?
I think so, something like that.
So the noise is coming from the 3.5 inch cell.
Obviously they're not very worried about the data integrity of the 3.5 inch
Well, it
disc
doesn't look
anymore.
like heads even down. Doesn't look the heads even down. I wonder if they're adjusting the spin of it, or they're doing
The head motion
the
back
head
and forth
motion,
on the
just the
grinder.
head.
I just think it's awesome. I don't know.
Yeah,
You can also do it with scanners.
they're probably stuck in.
I know there was one guy who did House of the Rising Sun with a couple floppies, a scanner, and an oscilloscope.
There's one in the lower left-hand corner with a whole bunch of hard drives.
Oh, let's do that one.
Do what? Oh,
Hard drive disco.
oh, yeah. I love
You guys are-
disco.
Seriously? You're disco fans? Putnam, what are you doing in that house? Raising a bunch of disco fans.
I love disco.
Hearing all that spin. Oh, come on. Load, YouTube. Load.
I don't recognize the feeling.
I don't know if it's just me, that sounds like a disco song being fed into a meat grinder.
Yeah, I don't think they're.
Yeah, it's in the-
I think you just hooked all those drives up to make a noise.
Okay, yeah, I've had enough of that. But yes, there's a variety of floppy-based and retro stuff-based music if you're into that. There's also a whole genre of music based on the synthesizers that were available with classic video game systems, such as the Game Boy. That's that type of music is called chiptune. There's varying varieties. Some people try to make music only using the original hardware, like only using a synthesizer derived from a Game Boy. So if it can't be made with a Game Boy synthesizer, it's not in the music. And then there's other groups like Anamanaguchi, which will take, I believe they take a Super Nintendo, maybe Nintendo, whatever. They synth in the retro era, but then they usually add an actual drum track and guitars on top. So you get your retro goodness, and you get some drums and guitar as well. So really anything in the retro-ish sphere, there's probably some music that's there for you. Sounding old but being new.
I had a game once that was really cool. It was done by Prince.
Prince did a game?
Prince did a game. Yeah. It was an awesome game.
Was it better or worse than Michael Jackson's Moonwalker?
I've never seen
My dad is Michael Jackson.
It was
Sounds
pretty,
like Michael.
it wasn't in a way cheesy and
There we go.
but it still was pretty cool.
Yeah, Michael Jackson Moonwalker was pretty fun.
Most
Hearing
of that.
hearing Smooth Criminal on the Sega Genesis synth. Anyways. So,
I saw
let's see what else we got.
a flash mob doing
Alright.
what was it? Being on the Ritz.
My taco. So many games. So many games. Yeah, Quake 3 Rally. That was the Quake 3 mod that you could make a rally racing game out of the Quake 3 engine. Rise of the Triad, old school.
Gaming engines have like their own
Wolfenstein.
language, or are they just API?
Say what?
Do these gaming engines have their own language, or are they just API?
I think you can find a fair bit of framework that is going to be not a particular programming language if that's what you want.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think a lot of Linux games are written in C or C++.
Actually, they got the game Morrowind or
Elder Scrolls Morrowind?
yeah, they have the engine for it. So basically, you can do your own game, I guess.
There are tons of frameworks and libraries and, multiple small games that are subpar or not even playable, just people trying to learn on it.
The good and bad thing about a batteries included frameworks is you will get people that will say, I'm going to write a game, but I'm not going to have plot or gameplay or
Documentation.
writing or documentation, but it's going to be awesome. And then, so that unfortunately is an issue that you will run into with games created using frameworks that basically give you everything, is you will find games that basically completely rely on everything that was provided and don't really make anything new or original. That being said, there are people that do make quality games using those frameworks as well. So,
My friends and I in college, we decided we wanted to make our own gaming engine.
okay,
There wasn't such a thing. So we decided what we wanted to do was we wanted to play games across networks.
okay,
But we're not talking, kind of networks we have now. We're just talking very low speed,
okay,
And so we decided that we were going to create this kind of rendering, gaming kind of thing that we call them blobs. Today's world we call them objects.
okay,
And what it would do is it would just have these blobs, and then you would tell the blob to do this or do that, or, that kind of thing. It was kind of cool. These are my geeky friends in electrical engineering. We just sat around one night and decided we were going to do this after final were over. We had a tradition where after final were over, we'd sit around and drink Mountain Dew and play D&D for like 3 days straight.
It is amazing the amount of games and gaming things that have been made possible by Dungeons and Dragons and Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you go down the line of gaming pioneers, many of them created games based on or wholesale copies of Dungeons and Dragons, fueled mostly by caffeine, often provided by Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I think Mist had some acid.
No.
I saw an original Mist at a garage sale and I bought it and installed on Windows XP.
It is hard game to play.
You forget how difficult the puzzles were, because you're like, that's a baby game. It came from a long time ago.
Graphics were amazing at the time.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing about old games is just because they're old doesn't mean they're easy.
I like the whole feeling that you got, and if they made it like a 360 degree with the same kind of feeling, it would be cool.
Well, actually, I'm going to steal you. Well, am I back up? Because I can play a game, VVVVV, which is the title of the game. It actually has 6 V's in a row, capital V's. And it's a retro-esque game. Let's see.
That's all we had was Dungeons and Dragons. We didn't have any computers or computer games.
I remember we were playing, I went to this one guy's house in Salt Lake City and he was playing this text-based game which was like, it was something to do with Star Trek or something. It was text-based and the guys were totally freaking out because it was like, it was on a Commodore 20, was it 20? The predecessor to the 64, 30. Anyway, the predecessor to the 64, and
That's what I'm
they were going crazy. They thought it was the most
Commodore
awesome
64?
thing they'd ever seen. It was just,
No, this is a new game.
you tell them to shoot phaser.
Like Commodore 64.
Yeah, this is
See it lining up.
Gary Kavanaugh, I think is the guy who made this game, and V came out, I think, 2010. This is a new game. Graphic options. Okay. Full screen. Up and okay. Return. Oh, stupid thing. I'm like, quit. Don't quit the whole thing. Just quit a little bit of the thing. Alright. So I'll actually get to the game part of the game. Although the loading screen is really cool.
I'm cold, but
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I need to press the action to make the text go. I'm like, we've hit some pretty so no. Crashing! This is bad!
It's a really fun game.
No! Quick!
Well, in college, I made a deal with myself. If I spent 3 hours on my, say, my statistics class, then I would reward myself with 30 minutes of X whatever game. You know, and that was my way to work to get through college, is just by using games as an incentive.
Oh goodness, that's not the right thing to do. Yeah, so the thing that you can do in this game is you change the gravity. Oh, that's me dying. Oh, so this is plot stuff. You're like learning about what happened to the space crew that you're on, or you can not care. Another game similar to this in its retro awesomeness is Super Meat Boy. Yeah.
I like the one where you're trying to get the frog across the pond. The Frogger. Frogger. How breakfast in the doing that?
Yeah. So I'm broadcasting. I'm on a different part of the ship, and she's broadcasting where I need to be. So I need to get over there in order to teleport to back, and so that's what I'm supposed to do, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody loves games. So yes. Are we still recording? Okay. So in conclusion, does anybody have any other questions or want to watch me play hours more of games?
No, but I think he had a question not with games, but with the command.
Do you want to put the command thing at the tail end, or do you want to do it as a separate video?
We can do a separate video.